Everybody, have a seat. And when you're ready, thank you. Wow, I feel like a kindergarten teacher. Jon Fitzgerald, everybody. You take it away. You two are going to have to share, sorry.
Yeah.
Okay, well, thanks everybody for joining us out here. What a beautiful location. Thank you for having me. Yeah, it's funny. I used to work for AFI. I hadn't been over here in years, and coming up past it was kind of fun. So you all get the drill. This is about going from shorts to features. How many of you, by the way, are shorts filmmakers, as in director or producer? Amazing. And how many of you are cinematographers and actors? Wow, okay. Good diverse group. Some of you raised your hand more than once, which I like. So I'm just going to let everybody introduce themselves. And the way I like to do these things, what do we have, an hour? How long do we have? 1 hour. So the way I like to do these typically is not talk too much and open it up and let you guys ask questions, because that's really what it's about. You got this distinguished group up here. We want to let you fire away. So we'll talk for 20, 30 minutes, and then we'll open up to Q&A. So I'm going to let these guys tell you a little bit about their background and why they're here in 2-3 minutes, and then I'll fire a few questions at them, and we'll take it from there. So Pedro, why don't you lead us off?
Hello, everybody. My name is Pedro. I'm a director of photography, and I come from Uruguay. I shot a bunch of short films, and then I was lucky enough to made it to movies here.
My name is Michael Gabriele. I guess started my career in the commercial world, making commercials, but recently been moving into narrative. I had 2 short films, and I recently just directed my first feature this past March.
My name is Calvin Reeder. I didn't know we were going to do a self-bio here.
Make it up.
Well, shit, man. I've been making films a long time. I'm a festival director. I have had 2 features at Sundance. I just had a feature at Tribeca in 2024. Just actually got released yesterday. I have made a short film that directly led to a feature, and frankly, I don't recommend it. So let's see where this goes.
Okay, so just a little bit about me, so you know why I'm here. I started as a filmmaker. I didn't make a short, but I did write and direct a feature. It didn't get into Sundance, so me and a couple other guys started Slam Dance. So I ended up doing that for a few years. Yeah, it was fun. And then I got a real job, and AFI hired me to run their festival, so I actually got a paycheck because Slam Dance didn't pay so well. I got insurance, too. So I did AFI for a few years. Then I did Santa Barbara, Naples. I've run a bunch of film festivals. But what I've been doing for the last 20-ish years is really helping filmmakers navigate the festival circuit. I do a course called Film Festival Mastery. I help filmmakers go from shorts to features. I help them navigate the circuit. I help them take their feature and find distribution. So it's really about how can we help filmmakers get to that next step. So I'm going to give you my information at the end, and if any of you want to reach out to me, feel free to do so. But I'm going to start with Michael, because I think he's done the shorts, he's done the feature, and I think the first question I want to start with was, how long did it take you when you finished the last short before the feature to get the feature into production?
So, like, the shorts that I did wasn't exactly like a direct short that turned into the feature. In terms of like the timing and how everything sort of worked out, like, I was developing the feature way before I started doing the shorts. And so it was just kind of like a right place, right time, where when my shorts were on the circuit, within 2 years I was shooting my feature. And that was sort of the plan. It was kind of quick and accelerated, but the shorts were sort of an ability, or like gave me the chance to be able to go to potential, financiers and be like, the shorts are out there. This is what they're doing. I can do this for the feature. And then that's how it.
The calling card play.
Exactly. That's how it worked. Yeah.
Yeah. So that's the move that most short filmmakers are looking for. I know there are a number of filmmakers that we've worked with over the years that just love the craft of making a short film and staying active. But at the end of the day, the calling card is the piece. Calvin, so let's talk with you for a second, because I know that you've played some pretty big festivals with your films. Talk a little bit about how the film festival space has helped you in your or did help you in your transition from making shorts to features, or how that happened for you?
Yeah, for me, it's not a very linear path at all, and I actually kind of struggle with these sort of thematic things, shorts to features, because my dumbass actually started making short feature films, and they were terrible. And I did that for about 2 years, and I shot them all on 16 millimeter. I was a construction worker, so I just threw every dollar I had at 16 millimeter, taught myself how to use the camera. Those films played nowhere, but I started working at a film lab through all of that and started collaborating with some really cool experimenters. And then my first short film started making the Sundance Film Festival. And it wasn't an immediate opening of doors. It was just a slow meeting of a lot of people. And I really think that's the best thing you can do. And you don't need to be at Sundance to do it. We can do it right now, you know. Is that good enough?
Yeah, absolutely. I think one of the you're going to hear like 5 or 6 themes they're going to keep coming back to on this panel, and I'm going to talk to you about it. I did a 10 ways to be successful going from shorts to features on this Substack blog called On the Circuit. And one of the things that's key to anything is networking, right? It's who you meet and how you meet them, and then being prepared when you meet them. And so I'm just curious. So, Pedro, tell us a little bit about how you work with the directors that you've worked with, because I know you're a cinematographer, so it's a slightly different story. But did you work on short films before you worked on features? And maybe talk about that a little bit.
So yeah, my story. I mean, I'm from Uruguay, so I did film school over there, and it's different to what we do here, but it's in the essence it's the same. So at film school, I met a bunch of directors that I did almost like 25 shorts on film school, because it was 2 cinematographers in that school and a lot of directors. So I chose that, and I had a lot of experience. But with 2 of those directors, I ended up shooting movies. And then what happened was in like 2009 or something like that, we did a short film with Fede Alvarez, which is a director that works here. We did a bunch of movies together, but the last one was Alien Romulus. And with that guy, we started doing commercials. And eventually we did a short film with $800 or something like that. And it was a simple idea. But at that moment, you know, YouTube was kind of starting, and he put that short film on YouTube, and it ended up being picked up by Sam Raimi. At that time, same thing happened with Neil Blomkamp. He did the District 9 movie, so he had a short film before also. So I guess it's a natural path, you know, from a short film to a movie. But yeah, once, you know, I generated those relationships with these directors, they ended up, you know, going forward, and we ended up shooting together, because I think it's a people's business, and it's very important that you have, you know, like your collaborators kind of helping out with you, because in the end, the directors are pretty much alone, you know, and the cinematographer is the right hand.
Michael, talk a little bit about the collaborations you've had with some of your team members and DPs.
Well, this DP that I actually worked on with my feature, he DP'd my first short film that came out on the circuit. And so it's a really good opportunity, because, you know, you really sort of get in the weeds, especially when you're working on short films. You don't have like a lot of money, right? So you're just trying to like push things as far as possible. You really know someone's true colors when you're like in it with them. And I think, you know, ultimately you develop a bond, and you just want to work with people that you know and you can trust in the thick of it. And that's how that worked.
Right. So in working with these teams, I'm curious, the feature that you just finished, were you working on the script for that? Were you also the writer, or did you work with another writer? How did the process of developing that work? And did you develop decks, and like what were the materials that were developed along the way to raise the funding?
Yeah, so ultimately, like I work with another writer, a co-writer. I feel like I'm a director first, maybe a writer second, and so, you know, I think filmmaking is ultimately better when you have like a good team of people with you. And so when I had this idea, and I had it sort of, I had the beats for it, but I found a writer that sort of helped complement me, another person that I met through networking at a film festival. And so ultimately what we did is we started writing this feature together, and then we had We had the script. We had a deck. I was able to find some private equities in order to get us started, and that's how we got the ball rolling.
And can you give us, I don't know if you want to name the budget, but can you give us the budget range of what you spent?
Yeah, absolutely. I mean, ultimately, the feature is coming from is end up being 1 to 1.5 million.
Yeah, that's a really important point that you're all going to come to learn as you're developing these scripts. I had a client years ago who wrote an amazing thriller. All took place in a house, very much like Psycho. I mean, brilliant. But then he sent me a broad comedy. And I said, I just don't know how easy it's going to be for me to help set this up for you, because they're going to look at this other thing and they're going to say, So he went and shot a thriller. But the point is, it's easier if you have a similar look and feel or tone. If you're lucky, it's easier to convince people that you can go from this to this. And it's also important to know that you can do something for a price. Nobody's going to give you, I mean, there are some exceptions, but it's going to be hard to make $10 or $20 million movie for your first feature coming off a short or two. So it's important to make them as tight as you can, right?
Yeah, and honestly, even before this feature was started, there was another feature I was trying to get off the ground. It was a rom-com. That feature I ended up shooting was a horror, right? So it's completely different. But there was originally I wrote the script for that, had some investors attached, and then just realized that in terms of like it didn't make sense from a financial standpoint in terms of return for rom-coms versus horror. So we had to pivot to the horror, which is what my other short films are. So it made perfect sense. But just goes to show you that sometimes it's you have to just pivot with things, because that first idea, that first script never actually happened. I made it. It might at some point, but not right now.
I have an interesting story. Well, my first feature it was like a normal, super small movie because it was shot in Uruguay, but it was like a normal movie, right? We had some funding from some funds, I don't know, whatever. But then I was working with this guy. We shot probably 5 shorts together, and we were doing a stupid chocolate commercial, super small. And we were like, what are you doing here? It was we went to film school and we were shooting this thing rotating, and a friend of us went to a festival and says, and he's a producer, right? And he went listen, I went to this festival in London and they told me nobody cares about those Uruguayan regular life movies, but if you give me a horror film, maybe. And we look at each other and say maybe we should do a horror film. And we are not horror film fans, right? But I appreciate those movies. I think there are some that are really good. And we gathered $8,000, and we shot a feature with that money. We shot it in 3 days, and it was a single shot horror film. We had this idea from the days of 16 millimeter to gather 10 cans of film and shoot 10 days, 1 shot a day, and make a movie. But then that changed when the 5D appeared, and we ended up shooting this movie with a 5D, and it was probably 7 shots put together, but it looked like a single shot. And that was the movie that actually took us to, it went to Cannes, it got remade here. It's called The Silent House with Elizabeth Olsen, a bunch of years ago. But in a way, it's that same thing. You need to pivot to some, even because the filmmaking craft, even though if you don't love horror, you need to train your to build your tools. And horror, it's a really interesting thing where you can, make people feel things very strongly.
Yeah, and it's the easiest genre to raise funds for.
Most probably, this movie ended up making money. We were on a cooperative, so nobody got money for it. I had some points, even the electrics have had points, and yeah, the movie came out. The director is really good. We made it work, and the movie wasn't brilliant. I mean, the script wasn't too deep, it was okay, but the gimmick of the single shot, it had a couple of jump scares. It kind of worked, and it ended up, in a way, paving our careers.
It's amazing. Yeah, it's an audience that is always there, for sure. I'm going to shift gears for a moment, Calvin, and talk a little bit about something else that I'm sure people are curious about. I get this question all the time. Do I need a manager? Do I need an agent? How do I parlay my talent with these shorts and find representation? Can you talk a little bit about that? Has that been a factor for you at all, or what do you think about the representation thing?
Can I plead the fifth on this one? Like, I know I've been very quiet, but like, is there any reps in this audience right now?
Not that they're going to tell you about.
I mean, I've had a few, and basically my
you don't have to name names.
Well, trust me, I'm not. But my experience, I'm a weird guy. I make weird films. They don't actually fit into the studio system very well. When you see a film at a big festival, a lot of agents and people and lawyers and everybody will kind of come and try to be friends with you, and they want to represent you and all that, and it's all fine and good at first for me. And then when whatever project I was trying to make gets made, or whatever thing we're trying to sell gets sold or doesn't, it comes to them placing themselves in a position for me to create work that makes them happy. Like, so, hey, I can't sell this, I can sell that. And that's happened to me more times than I really want to say out loud, and I always end up like cycling through them. And then when I do, the first question the next rep asks me is like, oh, why do you go through so many reps? What's wrong with you? And I'm like, it's like I just didn't feel like living out somebody else's vision. So this has been an issue for me. I don't suspect everybody here's had the same experience, but like, yeah, I lean a little on the experimental, and that's why I do well at festivals, and it just kind of slams up against a lot of those agencies and management companies.
Well, I'll just say, from my experience, because it is a question that comes up a lot, that you don't need representation to be successful. It's just typically what happens is if you make a film or two, they come after you because they see an opportunity to make more commercial projects, which can attract higher level talent, which gets the bigger price tag, so they get their fee. My first job, believe it or not, was in the train program at William Morris. So I learned the whole agency thing, and I learned pretty quickly that I didn't want to come up that way. I wanted to kind of go through production, so I shifted gears pretty fast. But I mean, it's not for everybody, but it is a way, and you learn a lot being in an agency. But I wanted to come back to you, Michael, and talk a little bit about, you mentioned the idea of a kind of a pivot, but I was curious, because something that I know is going to come up later in the Q&A is the materials that you created, the pitch materials, did you do a promo? Did you do a trailer? Did you cut anything first, or did you just use a pitch deck? Tell us about the materials that you developed to raise the funds for that feature.
Yeah, so this isn't like a quite an A to B thing, and I'll explain why in a second. But I originally had sort of the script. I had like a pretty extensive pitch deck. I didn't cut any sort of little teasers or trailers to it. A lot of the private equity that I had attached to my current feature was actually attached to the rom-com beforehand. So with that one, I had like, I actually even, that rom-com was supposed to take place in Italy. I even went to Italy, and I made this whole video, this like whole pitch deck thing. And it worked really well. And then people, through like constant updates and sort of letting them know, I said, listen, I can't with good conscience make this movie. We're not gonna get our money back. So we're pivoting to horror. And this is the project. If you want to go down, like if you want to continue going down this route, and most like 80% of them continued, but with that, they knew me, they were hearing about my short films going on the circuit, and ultimately like from a presentation standpoint, there was a big pitch deck, as well as just me sort of having a lot of meetings, a lot of one-on-one meetings and pitching it. So.
Okay, cool. Thank you for that. So Pedro, I'm going to come back to you for a minute because you're a cinematographer. So I'm guessing, in knowing that you've worked with the same director, talk a little bit about your process. And I don't know if he came to you to help select images for a lookbook or a deck or any materials or storyboarding. Talk a little bit about the creative process with your director.
Yeah, I think it's always good to gather as much as you can, right? I know there's like some people that, depending on where you are, like in which level in your career, or I don't know what, but some people don't like to do that because they don't want to get like influenced by something else. Because if you want to create something new, probably you don't want to, kind of dirty up your influence. But it's really difficult to sell. No, if I say, no, this is gonna be something new you never saw before, so I cannot show you anything because it's new. So in the end, I think it's better to just gather as much as you can, try to be as original as you can. But in my case, in those I've always been in touch with these directors constantly. In not necessarily talking about one project, but as in life, like being friends and talking about movies constantly, and that in a way influences the path that they
about
take.
References about things that you've seen
All of the time, but we try. At least I try to make it as I don't know if it's the word is unprofessional, but try to make it as personal as possible, in the sense that this is what we like, right? And in a way try to honor that, even though that we are doing a horror film that it's not necessarily what we liked. Is okay, if I have to do a horror film, how would I do it? And talking about our influences in that sense, they could be like whatever other movies. But I think gather as much as you can from whatever shot deck, whatever you can. Try to, I don't know, AI now. Try to get everything.
Shot deck, right? Isn't that a key these days? Do you use shot deck?
Yeah, I use Shot Deck. Yeah.
Do you want to tell everybody what shot deck is?
Yeah, I hope I'm doing it the right way, but honestly, it's basically a database of like screenshots from a lot of different films, and there's ways to search for them, and it's actually been really helpful. The way I heard about it is that I was lucky enough to get this award at a film festival, and part of it was like a free year at Shot Deck. I'm like, well, I was like, how, I was at first maybe a little not.
Do I need this?
Exactly. And then as soon as like I knew the search things, it just like made everything so much easier.
Because there was another one. Remember, there's another one that's called Film Grab. That was before. So Film Grab has way more movies than Shot Deck, I think, but they're not like indexed, right? So you need to know what you're looking for. Yeah, you go, oh, remember that movie? Maybe it has a frame.
Yeah, it really helps. It's a visual medium, so having those shots from maybe even movies you can recognize as sort of ability to put in your deck is, I don't know, it's been helpful for me, especially even when talking to my DP about certain things, right? For example, on our last part of our visual cue, Don't Breathe, we got some shots from Don't Breathe on our shot deck too. Yeah.
Amazing. Look at that. And that was just an accident that you guys are together today, right? Wow. That wasn't planned, folks.
Not planned.
I'm going to give you 10 things that were in this article that I wrote. These are all things that I think are important, and I'm going to tell you how to find it later. But in case it spurs any questions, because these are important, and I brought it up for a reason, because almost every investor or production company that you bring anything to is going to ask you for a pitch deck and a lookbook or whatever they feel like calling it. And so these resources that we're talking about are very, very helpful. All right, so here are 10 things. Log line, right? Seems super obvious, but you'd be surprised. You're standing at a party and you ask somebody what their movie's about, and you see them stumble. They call it an elevator pitch. You know why? Because you got to be able to pitch it between the time that you get in the elevator and by the time you land at the bottom. So that's a good thing to know.
I stumble every time. And I will for life.
That's okay. I won't hold against you. But it doesn't mean you can't try.
I don't need support. It's my way of life.
Synopsis is another big one. Pitch deck. And the pitch itself, right? So the pitch deck is a package, right? It's either 10 slides, 15 slides, 20 slides, but having the pitch down is important. And I got to tell you, one of the funniest references, and it's so famous it became a book, Jaws in Space. That was a pitch in a room for aliens. Jaws on a spaceship, right? You guys probably know that. Sorry. The script, another important thing they're going to ask you for. The plan. What's the plan and what's plan B, right? You got to have a plan A and a plan B. You do a budget for $1 million, do one for $250,000, right? I'm going to shoot a movie, I hope, in September that I think we're going to make for about $125K. I'm going to shoot it in 15 days, but I'm going to have a crew of about 10, right? I worked on studio movies that had over 100 people, and there's 50 people sitting around. You don't need to have that many people. Sorry. Budget range. Think about the budget. Again, plan A, plan B. And the two most important things, you're not going to have a trailer yet, obviously, because you haven't shot anything yet. But one of the other thing that's the most important of those two is the poster. And you're going to change it 14 times. Somebody's going to buy your movie, they're going to change it again. But it doesn't hurt to pay $5 or $10 or $15 to create a poster for you. Have a poster, have a look and a feel. Successful festival run, right? Everybody up here can vouch for that. And representation may or may not be important, but it's one of those things that you have to be able to defend if you're standing in a reception and somebody from an agency walks up to you. Do you really want to work with this agent? What are they going to do for you? I've had agents take me out to dinner and then they won't answer my call for like 2 or 3 weeks, and then all of a sudden they want to do dinner and breakfast and lunch again, and then they don't call you for 2 or 3 weeks. It's like they need to tell everybody that they just signed you, but they don't do a lot for you most of the time. Sorry if there are any agents in the room. All right, so that's 10 things that I think you should know. And here are a couple other things I'm going to throw out there, and then we'll open it up. These are some movies that started as shorts that you may or may not have known. Bottle Rocket, right? Wes Anderson. Saw, talking about horrors, that was a short first. Whiplash was a short first. And Sudeikis, was it the same? It was the same thing. It was the same thing. It was that. What's the show? Come on, help me out here. Ted Lasso, thank you very much. So there's a lot of examples of shorts that have gone to features, gone to series. Before we open it up to Q&A, I'm just going to go down. I'm going to start with you, Calvin, because you're the most fun. Tell everybody one thing you didn't know that you know now that you want to share with them that they should know if they're going to embark on trying to get a feature made.
Don't start with me. One thing I know now that I didn't know before. Okay, it's very simple. I find these conversations to be pretty heavily about how do I make the leap from short film to feature film. And if you're a writer-director and auteur, as they say, there's not nearly enough focus on the writing. I think that's what hangs people up. I think people are often looking to make a short film that will represent their feature film, like we were just talking about, because of these glowing examples that do exist. But most of the time, when you make a crackerjack short film and break in, somebody wants to see if you can write. Because making a short and executing a short is a completely different set of skills of writing a feature film. And it takes a lot of work. It takes a lot of reps. So, like, that's what I would say. Like, when I moved to town almost 20 years ago, I had my first Sundance short film, and I wrote like a third grader. And that did not help. So I would really just emphasize it's not about making the piece that's a proof of concept. It's about making a crackerjack short film that gets everyone's attention, and then whatever great piece of writing that will either become a film or it will open the door to make a great film. It'd be liquid.
And I'll just add to that real quick that almost everybody, I'm assuming actually everybody in this room knows somebody that has more experience than you have, that has written a screenplay or knows somebody that's written a screenplay. I mean, you're all here, so you're working it, right? And sometimes what happens is people feel like they know everything, or they don't want somebody to touch it. They don't want to deal with the feedback because then they might have to make a change. Really important to just get people that know more than you to read it and give you feedback. You'd be surprised. You're so close to it, you need feedback. So get the feedback. And I think Jeff Dowd, I don't know if you guys have heard of Jeff Dowd, but he was a producer's rep back in the day. And he works for a company now doing producer's representation. I'm going to blank on his company now, but it'll come to me in a minute. But anyway, he was the dude in the Big Lebowski. But he said most of the scripts he's read, 90% of them aren't ready before they go into production. So good point. Go ahead, Mike.
So just kind of going on the script, because this is kind of part of what I was thinking as well, is just I wish I would have consulted line producers before writing it, because I was trying to hit a certain budget range, and I was ultimately I made some decisions that made things a little complicated. It all worked out in the end because we were able to pivot and it worked out fine. But ultimately, there's certain things that raise the price point up, and it would have been good to know that ahead of time. The other thing is just from a general standpoint, I think just understanding that really, I think you had mentioned this before, it really is just about networking and meeting people. I mean, my feature was possible only because of going to festivals and networking and meeting people and meeting other people, and you never know where those connections will lead. And that was something that like you don't really think about, because you're like, I have this short film and it's really great, and I think, you know, someone will see it, and then, but to connect those dots, you need to just be a good human and meet a bunch of people, and then, I mean, it's all about helping each other out here, right? Especially at this stage.
Yeah, and it's important just again add is that you mentioned the word festivals, and you're all here, and presumably a lot of you are going to be at HollyShorts, and I think going to festivals and meeting people is so important, because you never know who you're going to meet. It could be, I was on a panel once in Florida, and I walked out with an investor just because he was at the bar afterwards. And so it's like you just never know who you're going to meet, and it could be the lead in your next film, you know. So definitely take advantage of it. But one quick point on the festival thing is, if you're submitting to festivals, make sure they do things like this. Make sure that they have hospitality programs. If you're traveling, find out if they're putting filmmakers up. Find out how many filmmakers are there. There's over 7,500 film festivals now. I guess some say there's 10,000. I don't know if I buy that, but the truth is, a lot of them are a total waste of time. If networking is important to you, find out when they invite your film, if they've only been around a year or two, do they have a hospitality program? Do they have happy hours? Do they have receptions? Are they bringing you guys all together? Really, really important. Thank you for that.
I'd like to add one thing on meeting people. It's like, meet everybody, even if they're not important, because you have no idea who they're going to become. Yeah. Like, I met so many nobodies that have become famous at this point, and I don't like to name drop, but like, I could. And it's all from it's all from shit like this. Like, some of these people we're looking at right now are going to get really successful. So meet them now and be friends with everybody, no matter where they're at.
Good point. Good point. All right, tell us, what's the one tip that you want to give people that you didn't know when you moved from shorts to features that these people would learn from?
As a cinematographer, it's a little bit more difficult, but because in the one tip is that don't get too nervous about doing a feature. It's almost the same as long as you keep focus on, you know, the storytelling.
Don't let the runtime intimidate.
Yeah, and the amount of people that you have around, or the different type of, because in the end, even in the biggest movies, you end up being, you know, a guy with a camera and an actor, and, you know, somebody kicking dust on the lens, and don't be afraid to be ridiculous. Okay,
there you go. So I'm going to give you one. This is something that I talk about a lot at the courses that I do. It's that you need to surround yourself with the best all-star team you possibly can. And unfortunately, we've moved into this kind of entrepreneurial filmmaker thing, right? Where you kind of got to wear multiple hats. You got to think like a business person. You got to think differently than the filmmakers from, 30, 40 years ago. And I get all that, and that's true. But the truth is, there are designers that are better than you. There are sometimes writers that are better that can do a polish. There are producers, there are DPs. I have clients that try and design their own posters, and they can just, for $20, have them done by somebody that's got a design background and has done it before. So don't feel like you have to do everything. Lend the project to other people, and it's the same from start to finish. It's the materials. You can do a deck. Somebody sent me a deck yesterday. It looks like they did it in Microsoft Word, and I think there's like somebody borrowed the logo for the cover or something, but there's no graphics, there's no nothing, there's no look and feel. It doesn't cost a lot of money to make it look professional. And the other thing that a lot of people take for granted is the post-production stuff, right? Is they just assume that their editor can cut a great trailer. Well, there's a reason why there are companies that get paid a lot of money to make trailers. They're marketing people, and they're familiar with making trailers to sell them. And I've made 7 documentaries now, and most of the time, the companies, even if we had an editor or paid somebody to do a trailer, the company that acquired the film paid another company to make a better trailer. It's just one of those things. So the note is, hire an all-star team, whoever you can get, to do all the things that you're probably not going to be the best at yourself. So that's my final thing. All right, so we got around 20 minutes left. Why don't we open up to Q&A? Yes.
After the festival, by the way, thank you very much for coming. I should start with that. But after the festival run, or maybe mid-festival run, was there like a strategy for getting your name out there to get a feature made that was like maybe a private screening you invited industry to, or was it about sending the short out, or was it about putting it online and trying to get eyeballs to it and then saying, hey, look at how popular this is? Like, what was like kind of a post
Okay, so for me, like, there's a short that is a proof of concept for a feature that I'm still trying to get off the ground. That one specifically, there was no online release. For another short, I released on Alter, which, you know, it gets out there, a lot of people see it, and that's good and all. But to me, there really wasn't a strategy with that. I mean, as much as I could, I just wanted to like meet people face to face because it makes all the difference. And then from there, just follow up with them afterwards. Like, that was my strategy. I know other people have, you know, if you're lucky enough to have one of those films that goes on one of, you know, on like a staff pick or short of the week and then gets blown up and then get all your eyes on you, but that there's no guarantee that that's going to potentially happen. So for me, it was just about trying to show up as much as possible in person, to meet those people in person, and to at the festivals and follow up with them afterwards. And, you know, it's, you know, a mixed bag. Sometimes people will get back to you, and these are some people I'm still talking to, and other people that you'll meet that you seem like, oh, I hit it off, I'm going to be great friends with them, and then all of a sudden they never get back to you, right? So just got to keep on just pushing it forward.
Yeah, and just to add to that, the idea of festival participation is really important. It's kind of like taking that to the next step. It's if you get invited to a festival, find out who's going to be there, who are on the panels, do they have a jury, what other filmmakers are there, and literally have a plan and think about your audience. If you did a film about yoga, are there yoga studios in town? You know, if you don't have a publicist, find out who the radio stations are. Like, have a plan going in, and you'll meet a lot of people and make the most of that experience at the film festivals, because it is a huge opportunity. Calvin, do you want to add to that at all about your working at festivals and making the most of them?
Oh, publicity-wise?
Yeah, or just advancing your career.
So she asked a question about post-festival that I thought was really interesting. And I really think anything you do that occurs to you is a good strategy. And that might sound a little loose, but like if you have a thought about doing a screening and inviting people, do it. And like if you can get it on a Vimeo staff pick or something like that, that's always great. I've had a couple do that, but they haven't exactly led to the next thing. The thing is getting eyeballs on your work puts eyeballs on you in general. So if it's like one-to-one, they just want to know what you're working on. So I would literally just do anything that occurs to you. That's like a meeting with somebody. I want to, I don't know, make a new friend or whatever. So, yeah.
And just inviting as many people as you can to your event.
Yeah, exactly.
Yeah, we were thinking about the screening and then blasting out the feature.
Sounds like a good idea.
All right, more questions? Yeah.
Yeah, maybe this is like a whole other panel, but I was hoping you guys could maybe talk about a little bit like after you made the film, like this whole distribution battle. Like, you know, I assume these are like independent films, and maybe you did a festival run, or kind of how did you plan for like how it was going to
find an audience?
Yeah.
I'm going to repeat the question because I know some people back there may not have heard it. Basically, it's how do you take it to the next level after your festivals? How do you secure distribution? For the feature, yeah. So do you want to talk about that?
Sure, I can talk about that. So the first thing that happens when you get a feature in a film festival is you get a bunch of calls from people called sales reps, and their job is to help you sell the movie. And they generally have an index of all the buyers. Now, one of the pitfalls of a sales rep is they usually charge 30% on a low end. And sometimes when they feel like they're doing you a favor, they'll charge over 50.
Or they charge you up front. Some of them $2,500.
Man, I've heard a lot more than that. But like, it just depends on which festival, how much they think they can bleed you for and stuff like that. So watch out for that. You don't always need a sales agent, but you might consider one. So that's the first hurdle. When you think about your offers, and that's really what's going to happen, is you're kind of beholden to whoever gives you an offer. And my first feature was not very well accepted by buyers. So what happened was I did a piecemeal release. At the time, Sundance was doing a project called Artist Services, and they helped get it on Netflix streaming. Then we did a indie art house theatrical, about 50 screens nationwide. We ultimately signed with a company called Factory 25, which is this great tiny little indie company. From there, it's been released multiple times on physical media. And the film lives as a cult classic today. It still gets booked. So that one, we went the small route. My second feature was a pre-buy from a studio that is now owned by Lionsgate, but it was called Anchor Bay, if you guys are familiar with Anchor Bay. Now there is currently an Anchor Bay, but it is not the same one. Somebody bought the name and just has been running around with it. So that was a little bit different. With that project, they did a pre-buy. We made the film. We played the festivals. And then they told me to my face that they were going to give all of the advertising money to Rob Zombie that year. And they acted like this was a positive thing, as if rising tides lift all boats. We got totally buried. And the film eventually found an audience on Stars and Encore, which was cool. I'll take it. But, like, you know, I had no control over that. In the film I just released, you know, right now, man, distribution's a really tough game. It's a lot of really predatory deals, and people are trying to take it for free. So be careful. That's all I can say. People are trying to, like, they're like straight up saying, we will give you no MG and
minimum guarantee.
And this is the percentage we'll give you, and that can be a very aggressive percentage now because they're just betting on the fact that nobody else is offering you a better deal, and they might be right. So it's really, really treacherous out there.
Yeah, and here's something I'll just add to that is there's two things. One is you're going to get a bunch of offers when you play these festivals. Don't give them long-term deals. There are companies like Indie Rights that'll do 1 to 3 year deals, I think. But a lot of these companies, Gravitas, Cineverse, a lot of these companies that are going after festival movies are asking for 10 to 15 years. And you don't want to do that. And they're not giving you an MG. But the other thing you should know is that there are aggregators. An aggregation is when you essentially pay somebody to get your movie on certain platforms for you, like Amazon, Google Play, iTunes, sometimes Tubi, sometimes Hulu. Some of them spread it out farther than others. But the point is, you retain the rights. You're just paying a fee for them to upload and ingest into these organizations for you. So that's a play. And some of them take a small piece. But the other thing that's really interesting, and I've written a couple blogs. I'm going to give you my blog now. So it's called On the Circuit, and it's on Substack. So if you search On the Circuit on Substack, you'll find it. But I've written articles about this, about alternative distribution, and I've written a couple recently, and I'm about to do another one. I think this is where things are going. If one of these companies doesn't offer you the kind of deal you want, and you think that your film has an audience, you can take it out on the road and do road shows. Hundreds of Beavers, right? You guys heard about that? There's another film that's a date night thriller that's doing it. It's called The Occult. Peter Hyaguchi's going out. He sent me an email today. He thinks he's going to make over $100 million. That's a little aggressive, but he's trying. He's booked tons of screenings. I think he's done 12 to 15. He's packing the house. He's spending a few $100 on social media ads, putting up a poster, and he's showing up. He's doing a Q&A. So people get off their couch because they'll come and see the filmmaker, and they'll do a Q&A. And this roadshow thing is really growing. I think Coppola's doing one, right, with Megalopolis or whatever it's called. So even the big boys are doing this now. So I think we're going to see a lot more of those road shows. And you do have to have the time if you got a family and you can't do that. That's a thing. But just be creative and don't just hand your movie over to one of these guys that's not. Okay, and I've remembered Jeff Dowd's company is Blood, Sweat, Honey. It's a sales rep in case you are looking for one. Do you want to say something about?
Yeah, that was great, by the way. I don't have as much experience coming forward with that, and I'm sort of fortunate that the producers that sort of jumped on board my feature towards the latter half of us prepping it have those connections with like these companies and these producers. Long story short, they took the script out and said, listen, we're planning to shoot this thing in early spring, and they were at the Berlin Film Festival. They took that out to a bunch of people that they knew, and a sales agent came on board with good terms. They're called Bluefinch. They're out of the UK, and they do a lot of horror type films. And so they sort of just having that backing early on sort of like is helping us with our entire strategy in terms of like release and marketing, et cetera, et cetera. It's the film that I did is a Canadian film, so we have Canadian distribution already attached to it, and it's officially a Telefilm sponsored film as well, which helps.
They give away a lot.
Yes, we got some money from them, which is nice. But ultimately, yeah, it's really about like that we're still early, so we'll see. Like maybe next year, we'll see like if I have anything to report from there. But so far, it's been a good process.
It also comes down to this is something that somebody's going to eventually ask. So I'm just going to nip it in the bud here. But the idea is that it comes down to your goals, right? So if distribution and playing the film in theaters is your goal, then you can make it happen either by selling it or by doing it yourself. If you have investors to pay back, that changes the game a little bit, right? If it's a calling card, it changes again. So it's really about what are your goals and what's most important to you. Some people have other projects and other stories they want to tell. They don't want to be on this movie another year or two, bicycling it across the country. But some people, they've spent 5 years on this, they want to see it all the way through. So you really have to start with your goals, like what's important, how much do I have to make, and is it important for me to play on a silver screen, or is taking a deal with a streamer good enough for me? AVOD platforms are booming right now. Advertising video on demand, for those of you who didn't know it, but basically it's back to TV where it was years ago, right? People are getting used to watching movies with commercials, right? If they can have a bunch of memberships and not have to pay for them. So anyway, we got time for a few more questions. Yeah. So the question is, what do the conversations look like trying to seek equity to fund your feature? So I'll give you 30 seconds, and then these guys can take it away. So typically what happens is you're selling shares of the movie. And the waterfall that I like is you give up 49% of the movie to limited partners. You sell shares for $1,000, $5,000, $25,000, whatever you need, right? Depending on your budget. You retain 51%, you and your general partners. So you control everything. They don't have any voting rights. They just gave you some money. You have to have a subscription agreement. You have to incorporate, depending on where you do it. You pay anywhere from $12 to $50. But you incorporate, you have a subscription agreement, and you sell shares. And typically, the ones that are most successful, I believe, in this kind of low-budget realm are giving your investors back 110% before you get your money back. So you can tell the investors, you get 100%. I'm going to pay you all back out of first dollars in. And sometimes you have to take deferrals out, to be fair. If you can't pay for certain things, you need to take, you defer your composer, or you need to defer certain things. But once you start getting money in that gets paid back, it's paid back to the investors first, plus 10%, then you start getting 50-50. So dollar comes in, 50 cents for the investors, 50 cents for the general partners. That's a quick overview that I've used.
Yeah, it was very similar on my end too. Instead of 110%, it was 120% on my end. But it's ultimately like we work with a lawyer to come up with a contract that sort of made sense, right? And then from there, having sort of the pitch deck with the log line, summary, script, et cetera, and then having those meetings specifically and sort of telling them, like at a movie our size, in terms of like projections, is kind of hard, but ultimately like what you could like comps, right? Comp movies, right? And so that helps as well. Just so that it's like these investors want to know, like, I mean, some are, there's different investors are investing for different reasons. Some are doing it more for the art. Some of them are investing for the filmmaker. Some of them are investing for getting the money back.
To see their name on the screen.
Yeah, to see their name on the screen, right? And so, like, there's tiers, right? So you give a certain tier where you can say, like, okay, well, if you put in X amount of money, then you can get a presentation credit on the scrit, or you get an executive producer credit and whatnot. And so those are all like tiers that you sort of work with, and that's how you sort of start. But ultimately, it could be a different strategy for each single person, right? And each of my investors meetings was all different depending. Some of them happened to be colleagues, people that I've met, that I know invested in films. Some of them happen to be family members, right? There's different thoughts. So I hope that answers the question. It really is kind of up in the air.
There's no one way, but there's a couple of examples there. Calvin, you want to talk about that at all?
Yeah, I don't want to talk about percentages and stuff. So, like, basically, my first feature was really low budget. I made it for $20,000, and I asked 4 people for $5,000, and they said yes. So that became a 10-day shoot, and it went well, and everybody got back what they wanted. It took a little while. The next film, like I said, was a pre-buy from the Anchor Bay, but there were other people involved, and that took about 7 years. So that's a film called The Rambler, and the short film version of The Rambler played Sundance in 2008. The feature played in 2013, so that's a pretty big stretch. The low budget feature I was just explaining happened between the premiere of the short and the feature because I couldn't secure financing for the feature. So once I made that low budget feature, it helped unlock that pre-buy from Anchor Bay. And then the film I just made was kind of an odd situation. Just It's just private equity, and they like the script. And decks and stuff are cool. I'm not going to advocate against decks because that's a thing. But I really think what sells it is your ability to be present in the room. Sell it yourself to like your in your pitch. Your pitch sells it. Your pitch sells it way more than the deck. You're just being yourself, and you don't have to memorize it. Just know it and be it, and like make them feel like if they don't work with you, then they're missing out. That's kind of it.
Fair enough. Okay, couple more. We got time for a couple more. Any more questions? Yeah.
You said that you don't recommend going short to feature. Why?
Going proof of concept short to feature is what I meant to say.
Okay.
Largely it's because of form. A really smart guy once told me that short films are about event and feature films are about character. So if you try to make a short film that focuses on this kind of unwieldy story that's around this character, I'm getting backstory and all this kind of stuff, everyone's asleep. But if you have this event, this short film that happens in 5 to 10 minutes and you can make it pop, yes, characters are involved, but it's about the event. So like in a feature, unless it's a melodrama, it's about the characters, what happens to them after a given event or a series of events. Therefore, I feel like the mediums are at odds just naturally. So I don't really recommend it. I've done it, but I don't recommend it.
Yeah, and I think that some of the ones that we mentioned before that were successful, a lot of these guys just felt like they kind of had to tell this story. Some of them knew that they wanted to make features out of it. Others, frankly, didn't know. But sometimes people say they're trying to raise the money, and they say, we're not going to give you that money until you can demonstrate what this is about and who these characters are. So it kind of works. Yeah. I'm going to try and repeat that. That some people are saying that micro features are like the new micro budget features are the new short. The new proof of concept. Well, I think the tricky thing is you have to know the kind of stories you want to tell. I do say when I get confronted with that question with a client that's made 2 or 3 shorts, they say, I'm just developing this thing and I'm going to go raise $30,000 or $40,000 to do another short. I say, why don't you just do a feature? Because you have a better chance of demonstrating that you can tell a whole story, that you can do a feature, and there's a chance it might make some money back. There's a lot of reasons why I argue for that. I'm not saying it's the right way, but that's what I tell them. But the tricky thing is, again, coming back to the goals question, I think, is what kind of movies do you want to make? If you want to make small movies and then eventually kind of work your way up, I mean, look at Linklater and Soderbergh. I mean, those guys made some smaller things, and then they got bigger. But we had a guy from DreamWorks gave our filmmakers a tour at AFI one year, and I'll never forget. He said, I love supporting independent filmmakers, John, but the truth is I'd rather hire a commercial director who's used to working with big budgets and big effects and set pieces that can handle a big crew and a big budget. I'd rather give them money than give the next up-and-comer out of a film festival. So it really depends on the kind of movies you want to make, right? But you guys can weigh in on that.
Yeah, I don't really have much to say on that aspect.
I don't have much to say about the guy you just said, but somebody told you that shorts were the new
micro budget
features are the new shorts. I guess that just depends on who you shoot. Somebody in here probably has a really amazing micro budget feature so I don't want to reduce that in any way. But if you're really just debating whether a short can make as much noise as a feature, I would say that your odds are just as good, because a short film can do a lot. A really good short film has done more for me than any of my features. I won Sundance one year with a short, 3-minute short about a fart, an elaborate fart joke. That did more for me than anything. It sounds like I'm lying, but it happened. And And I actually made that film after I had made 2 features at Sundance. It was like I just went and made this thing, and it did more than the previous 2 features because it just caught on. And I was like, holy shit, why am I making features? And, not for nothing, I have been on programming committees for some bigger film festivals, and I have seen the ocean of micro-budget features. And, boy, there are some carcasses.
Yeah, I think what Sundance had 17,000 something submissions last year. I think 10,000 plus shorts. And so you think about these festivals, like Newport Beach got over 5,000. I think Nashville got over 3. These festivals are getting inundated, and most of them just weren't really ready to go into production yet. All right, we have time for one more question. Yeah.
So I'm curious to hear your thoughts on nowadays. I don't know how it was 20, 30 years ago, but nowadays I feel like there's just a flooding of just so many different programs. I don't want to say grants, like like they have like the Sundance Labs for features, but obviously that's like the North Star or whatever. But there's tons of now. I feel like I see people or filmmakers who want to make features that get stuck in almost these like, okay, I want to apply to this program and this program for their feature. And I'm
Applying for money or for training? When you say lab, so
sometimes it's you get accepted and you come in and you're gonna workshop your feature for 3 months, or sometimes they do offer money. But I'm talking more about like these programs or these like get your feature in front of workshops and stuff. And I'm just curious to hear, and also just grants. I mean, I know that there's government funding and stuff. And my question is, what's your opinion of going the funding through government or through programs versus private?
Well, I'm going to talk fast because I know the answer to that, and then these guys can weigh in. But the fact is, grants are really, really hard to get. They take forever. There's thousands of people competing for them. I'm not going to say you shouldn't apply, but you should manage expectations. And they take a long time to prepare and a long time to go through the process of them reviewing everything. So the grants is a whole other thing. And unfortunately, United States, we don't have to get into that panel, but we're not so good at supporting the arts. But Canada, Europe, they support the arts in a much different way. So you want to move over there, you probably get more grants. But on the lab thing, if it's a lab for an established organization like Sundance, like Austin, there are some great labs and some great workshops. But you have to be careful because there's also a lot of sharks out there that'll charge you $5,000-$10,000 and say, we're putting on this lab, we're going to have these panelists, we're going to have these teachers teach you, and they're just trying to make money. And they don't necessarily have A-listers showing up that can really advance your career. So you really have to just pay attention to the ones that have good people showing up and that have been around a while, and definitely do the due diligence. Anybody want to weigh in on that?
I do, actually. I've been through exactly both of what you described. I've done the gutter ball ones. I've flown all the way out to New York to like hope that I would get these meetings that I was promised by these networks that didn't exist, these people that didn't, and I'm like, holy shit, I just flew my own ass out here to feel like an idiot. And there's nothing you can do about it. But I've also been to the Sundance Labs, but it was for the episodic. And they don't finance a television show, but they do put you in touch with so many showrunners, in my case, so many writing professionals is the universal thing here. It opened doors. I sold that show. Didn't make it, but I sold that show. And, now I have televisions and connections to television. So I recommend submitting to the main labs if you can. If there's a grant that's easy to apply for, do it. I don't see any harm.
Yeah, it's just managing expectations. Okay, I'm going to give you my email. Send me an email, and I'll put you in the paid Substack, so you don't have to pay for it. JON@causepictures.com, CAUSE, pictures.com. Thank you all for joining us for this panel today. I think you might want to say a few words. Thank you all for coming as well.
Big round of applause for our panelists. Thank you so much, and wonderful moderator, John.